Ag, Rural Development, and Housing Finance Committee comes to order. Quorum present? Yes. Quorum is present. Members, we have an overview today from Housing First on the report recently released, and some comment and follow-up as well. But let's get things started with calling Mr. Siegel and others up to present the report and go over issues and conclusions you found relating to housing and cost drivers, and just what many of us on the committee have asked questions about what can be done, or what are the pros and what's the cons, and what's driving costs, and what do we do well, and what can we improve on here. And so we're welcome you to our committee, and interested in what you found and can present to us as we try to wrestle and make the best decisions we can to advance housing options and affordable options throughout the state. So with that, welcome. If you want to identify yourself for the record and proceed, that'd be great.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you very, very much. My name is David Siegel. I'm the Executive Director for Housing First Minnesota. We're a trade organization of about 1,100 housing-related businesses, home builders, remodelers, developers, trade partners, and suppliers throughout the state. And we're pleased to appear before the committee to discuss one of the most urgent and pressing issues facing our state, and that's our broken housing market. While it's true that our housing market is working well for many Minnesotans, our housing market is broken in several key ways. We have one of the largest gaps in median existing and median new home prices. That's the gap between a newly built home and a resale home. One of the largest in the country. It's about $140,000. We build far fewer affordable homes than the rest of our Midwestern peers. The home ownership gap between white and non-whites is the worst in the country. And our housing market is chronically undersupplied, to the point where Governor Dayton's task force on housing called for the construction of more than 300,000 new homes by 2030. But it's not enough just to build new homes. The state can only achieve the ambitious goal of 300,000 new housing units by ensuring that each new home or condo or apartment is built and it's affordable for the greatest number of Minnesotans. So replenishing housing supply with affordable new homes would fix much of what is ailing in our region's housing market: pressure on rents, low inventory of for-sale homes, and the challenge for first-time, move-up, and downsizing buyers. Supplying new affordable homes has become increasingly difficult. It is not that home builders choose not to build more affordable homes. It's not that they don't want to. They aren't building at these price points because they can't. Seeing this, Housing First Minnesota set out to study and better understand why we are undersupplied and what could be done to stimulate growth at the affordable price points. And the results of the study are both enlightening and sobering. Across all Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois markets, labor costs are comparable, material costs are comparable, overhead and profit are comparable, regulatory costs are up to 2 times more expensive in Minnesota. And I can share 2 examples. In one of the comparisons in the study, we looked at the identical home built by a builder in Hudson, Wisconsin, and Lake Elmo, Minnesota. Same house, same builder, same trade partners. The house in Lake Elmo costs $47,000 more than it does in Hudson, Wisconsin. In one suburban Minnesota city, the regulatory costs were 1/3 of the final price point of the home. I think we can all agree that that's probably not reasonable, and it's probably not sustainable. The study also demonstrates and reinforces a basic element in housing prices that's all too often overlooked or missed. Homeowners pay for everything as part of the final price of the home. This includes park fees, infrastructure, stormwater management, zoning requirements, and fees. So it's with this awareness that the study concludes with a recommendation for a legislative commission on housing affordability. I was recently talking to some folks who went to Mayo to get a checkup. Housing ecosystem is a lot like a medical system. When you tweak one pill or one medicine, then everything else is affected. housing is very similar. And what they do that's so unique in Mayo is they bring all the different disciplines together, and they have exceptional communication and exceptional integration of service, and that's how they're able to provide such unique care. They've really reimagined the way medicine can happen. For us, the problem is too big, frankly, for a bill or two tweaking regulations. And with 12 to 15 different agencies regulating a standard housing project, there needs to be a centralized approach. Studying this problem in depth has confirmed for the housing industry that we need to reimagine housing regulation to include safety, durability, and affordability as equal objectives. So with me are two experts, issue experts, who can share more specifics on the research findings. And again, thank you for the opportunity to discuss this important issue with the committee. I'll turn it over to Mr. Erickson.
Thank you. My name is
Very
Nick.
good, Mr. Erickson. If you can identify yourself for the committee, I think you're about in the middle of doing that.
Yep, sorry.
So welcome.
My name is Nick Erickson. I'm the Regulatory Affairs Manager for Housing First Minnesota, and I also was the lead author on this research paper. And I think, Mr. Siegel pointed it out well. Really by nearly every measure, new homes here in the Twin Cities cost more than they do elsewhere in the Midwest. We say is our housing ecosystem is broken. New entry-level single-family homes have all but disappeared from the Twin Cities landscape, and home builders, and as Mr. Rask can attest to in a few minutes, are no longer able to deliver this much-needed product in our environment. This is really pricing the middle class out of that new housing market, and really we undertook this research study to really try to put some hard numbers to what is going on and why are new homes so expensive here, and really why are they most expensive in the Midwest. We found, as Mr. Siegel said, we have one of the highest gaps between new and existing home prices in the nation. 1/3 of home prices are up to regulation. One thing he did not note in our comparisons, we did look at Hudson, Wisconsin, as well as Lake Elmo and a few other cities, but we also compared to the suburban Chicago market. And we found that a new home in the Twin Cities can be up to $82,000 more than the same home built by the same builder in the suburban Chicago area. That price difference is 25%. And we have a chart up here. The blue and teal lines on this chart really signify a healthy entry-level price point for those of you looking at the screen. You can see that really across the Midwest, our major housing markets, we have no less than 50% of new homes, and this chart does include multifamilies. It's not just single-family homes. Really at least half, up to 80% of our new home market is what we would consider an entry-level home. Here in the Twin Cities, we're actually about 35%. And if you were to take townhomes out of the equation and just put single-family homes into this equation, that gray bar and that orange bar would dominate almost the entirety of this chart. So, so really, why aren't builders able to meet demand? That's what we set to find out. And how we did this was we partnered with 4 home builders here in the Twin Cities market. We chose to focus on the Twin Cities market because it is the state's largest housing market. We're responsible for about 70% of all new single-family homes. We worked with these home builders, their land developers, their subcontractors, the cities in which they built, all provided data. And we sat sometimes hours at a time trying to peel back the accounting on every penny that goes into a new home. And that really gets us to our study. We compared Lake Elmo, Corcoran, Minnesota to Hudson, Wisconsin, and for the other part of our comparative analysis was Blaine, Lakeville, and Victoria compared to Southwest Chicago suburbs. And really what we found is that our housing policies in the state are a contributing factor, to say the least, what's creating such a housing affordability issue. Again, up to 1/3 of a house price is due to housing policies. This is not just fees, it's not just building code, it's other policies that affect land price. It really is, every facet of the home building process has some regulatory costs attached to that, and in and of themselves they're very small, but the cumulative effect is really why we're here today. Really, there's no single government entity that's to blame. There's not a single policy that we can fix overnight to solve these challenges. Really, what has happened is housing affordability, and as we create housing regulations, and the state has our housing regulations have 4 pillars. There's local control, there's safety, there's durability, and there's environmental protections. There should be a 5th, and that missing 5th pillar is housing affordability. And really, we just need to raise the awareness, is why we're here today, about the cumulative effects of housing regulations. Our first home comparison, what we did for our study, is Corcoran, Lake Elmo, and Hudson, Wisconsin. In Corcoran, that home was about $373,000. It was $377,000 in Lake Elmo, and $330,000 in Hudson, Wisconsin. Really, this is the same home, same builder. It's not a large home. When you hear nearly $400,000, you might be thinking this is a large home. This is a 1,750 square foot home built slab on grade. There's no unfinished basement, no finished basement, no second level. This is a single story slab on grade home. And you can see, there definitely is, across their profit, administrative costs are about equal, but really there are some construction and land costs that are higher in Minnesota than they are in Hudson, Wisconsin. Looking across to the other metro areas we looked at, Chicago and the Twin Cities, Blaine, Lakeville, and Victoria, same home, same builder. We also looked at suburban Chicago. In the Twin Cities, the price ranged from about $403,000 in Lakeville all the way up to about $414,000 in Victoria. The home they built in Chicago by the same builder was really similar. It was actually 100 square feet larger on a larger lot, and that home was $332,000. Just looking at these numbers, it's clear that there's something amiss here. So we've really dug in deep to find out. The regulatory share of a home price, anywhere between 20 and 33% here in the Twin Cities. It was 15% in Hudson, Wisconsin, and it was about 13.5% in the Chicago area. So really much lower than it is here. So what are these numbers? And it's, again, no one fee, no one regulation, no one policy. It's the cumulative effect of these policies. We've seen, we've seen that the net revenue to some cities, or to all the cities that we looked at for the study, that after the permit revenue, after their expenses, the cities we looked at was about $5.8 million between these cities. Some of these cities alone had nearly $2 million in net revenue from building permits. It's money that they collected over what they needed to. Parks. In our study, we found up to $4,600 per home for a park fee or the value of land for parks. We know in the Twin Cities here, those park fees can go up to nearly $10,000. When a home buyer builds their new home, they're not just paying for the home, they're not just paying for the lot, they're paying for the streets, the curb, the stoplights, the sewers, everything, all the infrastructure in that development. In addition to that, some off-site improvements made to city infrastructure can run up to about $16,000 per home. City-required updates or improvements upon already planned infrastructure can be almost $13,000 a home in the Twin Cities. Local water management from local water management organizations, watersheds varies greatly. Could be up to the effect, $1,600 per home. There's a new phenomenon in the Twin Cities called local design standards, where we have arbitrary architectural requirements imposed on new homes that do not apply to existing homes. That can add up to about $5,000 to a new home in the Twin Cities. Land rationing effects of the Met Council and cities who ration lots. We've found that the MUSA line is how far out the sewer line goes here in the Twin Cities. If you're in Blaine at the northern edge of that line, your land can be up to 13 times more expensive than in Lake Elmo, where they don't have the Met Council sewer line. So we think there needs to be some acknowledgement and some awareness that well-intentioned policies can raise undeveloped land prices. And finally, we had a builder who gave us to the penny cost difference between what it takes just to physically construct a home in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and it's about $15,500 just construction costs alone. And again, this is not just fees, it's not just permits, it's land use policy, zoning requirements, landscape requirements, holding on to letters of credit too long that builders have to actually build a finance charge into some of these homes. And finally, I think a good example of some of these non-fee, what appears to be a cost policy would be the common interest community reform legislation that Senator Dietzich championed in 2017, where we saw just a policy that existed on the state as to warranty construction law on multifamily projects was adding thousands of dollars to the cost of a home and actually prohibiting builders from building a needed entry-level product. I did touch earlier on land supply and how that can adversely affect land prices. Again, in Blaine, just a quick example, undeveloped land that's ready, kind of zoned for residential development can be between $65,000 and $80,000 per acre. Adjacent community, right across the Met Council line, the MUSA line, that same land sells for $6,200 an acre. It's a factor of about 13 times if you're looking at comparable land prices. And I think that is, in and of itself, a stunning statistic. You know, and what all of these, the cumulative effect does is again, it's not one policy, it's not one entity, it's the cumulative effect of these regulations, and it's pricing out the middle class from the housing market.
Mr. Erickson, on those prices, what would contribute, what do you think is, what contributes to that? Is it merely being inside the Met Council boundary versus out, or what else would?
Yeah, because that's how far the coordinated sewer and water line goes. So that land is considered to be more desirable. There's less infrastructure costs to that. You know, met with many land developers working on this research, and you know, chatting with them. Kind of the consensus is if we were to adjust some type of policy, they could see where land prices are going to go up on the other side of the line and probably down a little bit on the periphery because there'd be more competition for land. So unfortunately, if you're a seller, it might not be a good deal for you, but if you're a new home buyer, it's great.
Well, it depends upon which land you're selling.
Yeah.
But okay, go on.
Yeah, and you know, we also looked at, you know, using basic, you know, lending practices, standard lending practices. It takes twice the median household income in Minnesota of $75,000 to afford a new home. As Mr. Siegel said, Governor Dayton's Housing Task Force last year said we are 300,000 housing units short. We need to build homes so that everybody in this state has a place to live and we can meet our growth targets. If we are unable to build affordable homes, we are not going to be able to get to that point. When we are pricing 85% of the potential home buyers in this state out of the new home market, there's no way we will ever be able to afford to build our way out of the mess that we're in. And really, it doesn't just touch new home buyers. With a highly restricted supply of new homes based on who can afford to purchase them, we are placing added demand on our existing home market. This is why we've seen dramatic increases in existing home prices over the last few years, because there's simply not an adequate supply of existing homes. Without an adequate supply of existing homes, we're raising rents. There's kind of the whole ecosystem is broken, as we like to say. You know, and this is not just you know, the middle class are being priced out. This also does affect you know, the state's economy. It's amazing to see that, you know, for every 1,000 homes built in the Twin Cities, that can be, you know, almost $300 million in economic activity. It could be, you know, $20 million more in local government taxes and fees. And the short-term one-year impacts is about 3,500 new jobs created to build those homes. And the ongoing impacts to the communities are $40 million in added income, an additional almost $9 million in local taxes and fees annually brought in by new tax revenue for property taxes. And you know, these new residents create a demand for new services. So you need barbers, you need bankers, you need someone to give you your tacos at Chipotle, and that is where we get almost 600 new jobs for every 1,000 homes built. And, you know, really what we're here today is to really highlight these issues, talk about, you know, have you ask us some questions. I'll let, you know, Mr. Rasko in just a second, but really what we're calling for is a bold reimagining of housing policy in the state. We simply cannot meet the demands of tomorrow. We can't meet the demands of today if we do not address the affordability challenges that are facing us today. So we're calling for a fundamental reimagining of housing policy in this state. And we think that should be a legislative commission on housing affordability, which we would task with a few things. One, affordability-centric review of existing housing policies, review any new housing policies that come forward, whether it be from the legislature or a common set of policies maybe from regional or local government. We also need to find a way to investigate and address and recommend policies to address Minnesota's equity gap in housing. We actually have the largest gap in the country when it comes to white and non-white homeowners. I think that's something that needs to be addressed by this commission. And also there's an opportunity for innovation, as lawmakers know. technology also always outpaces your ability to respond. I think, ride sharing at the local level is common, kind of one that cities are trying to catch up on. We had these scooters that popped up randomly around here last year is another great example. But we view a partnership of the commission and the housing industry and local government, state government, to try and find a way that we can integrate innovative housing and development practices into our state and actually use these to drive down the cost of housing. And I'll tell you, this is very complex. This research took 6 months. It was hours and hours of sitting with financial experts and industry experts to get these numbers. And one thing that stuck out to anyone on the research team was there's very little transparency in why homes cost the way they do. And every builder, every city accounts for everything differently, and there needs to be a common language and a way to talk about housing. And we do have an example of this in our report. It's called the Housing Affordability Impact Statement, and I won't pull that up, but it is in the report, which I believe the committee was provided. But I will now turn it over to Ms. Rask before we take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Mr. Rask, if you want to identify yourself for the record, and then we do have 4 other testifiers, so we'll have to try to
keep it short.
Try to keep it within brief, and just so we don't run out of time for everybody. Yeah. So,
well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is John Rask, and I'm a home builder here in the Twin Cities area. I work for MI Homes, where I'm the vice president of land development. MI has been in this market for about 3 years. They entered the market by purchasing Hans Hagen Home. I was the president of Hans Hagen Homes at the time. We sold to MI, and Hans Hagen has been in the market for over 50 years. So we have a long history in this market. And I also have the pleasure this year of serving as the president of Housing First Minnesota. I really got involved in this industry about 26 years ago when I entered it kind of unconventional means as a city planner. My background was in urban planning, and I've worked for 3 local municipalities, city of Chanhassen, Plymouth, and I was a community development director in Hugo before I went on to work for Hans Hagen Homes. So I'd like to think I've got a fairly broad perspective on a lot of these topics. I understand, both sides of the issue, if you will. I understand the city's, ability and need to regulate growth and pay for that growth. And I also understand, as a home builder, what it takes to build homes that people can afford. And as the study points out, right now the system's broken. It hasn't always been broken. This market, if you go back pre-recession, we could deliver homes at a price point people can afford. But that, for whatever reason, has just slipped us over the last 15 years. We no longer have that ability. When Nick talks about regulations, you've probably noticed, we're not opposed to regulations. We understand that's a necessary part of the process. We're not opposed to fees. We just need those fees to be fair and proportionate to, the needs that we create and the needs for the city to administer ordinances. And as the study points out, we find that's not always the case. And that doesn't mean in every city that's true, but what we find in the vast majority of the cities that we do business in, the costs just keep escalating, making it ever more difficult to provide homes that people can afford. The research that Nick put together here is something I wasn't directly involved in preparing, but had, of course, the opportunity to review. And it's really the first time in my career, both as a planner and a home builder, that somebody's really taken a comprehensive look at what all the impacts are to the cost of a house, and looking at the process, looking at the regulatory environment, looking at the fees. A lot of times, we have these discussions about fees. Maybe it's an argument about a transportation fee or a park fee, but nobody's really taken this comprehensive look at the impacts that all of these things cumulatively have on the price of a home and the ability to deliver homes in this region at a price that people can afford. So if you haven't had a chance to read it cover to cover, I'd certainly encourage you to do, because it is very well put together. And I work in all the cities that are cited in this study. We, as a national home builder at MI, also work in the Chicago markets and 15 other Midwest markets. And everything that's been cited here, we find to be true. They're not our numbers when you look at the Chicago numbers, but we see the same thing. And when our corporate folks ask me, John, why does it cost so much to build these homes in Minnesota. We're building the same home in Chicago for substantially less. And I've gotten pretty good at going through the whole litany of regulations that we have to comply with here that I know they don't comply with or have to follow in Chicago. And it doesn't mean that Chicago can't build a good home. It just means, we kind of take some extraordinary steps in a whole lot of little ways to try to, I think well-intentioned. I don't mean this to sound negative, but, we do a lot of things and require a lot of things of builders in this market that certainly doesn't exist in other Midwest markets. Nick's done a good job of kind of outlining the process. If you look at Exhibit C of the study, you'll see kind of a comprehensive flow chart of what it takes to build a home in this market, and it is quite exhaustive. Not sure it's a whole lot different than some other markets, but we do have many more steps at times. And I'm going to just give you one kind of simple example. In Minnesota, when it comes to wetlands and stormwater, sometimes, depending on, of course, the type of wetland and where you're at, but at times we have 7 different governmental agencies that will review wetlands and stormwater. You have the city, you have the watershed district, Bowser, DNR, Minnesota PCA, the DNR, and the Army Corps of Engineers. That's 7 people that are giving you input on the design of your stormwater plans, giving you input on how you're protecting wetlands. And oftentimes those agencies don't even agree to the approach. So we could submit, spend $100,000 developing a preliminary plat, developing a very comprehensive stormwater plan, model that stormwater plan based on city requirements, only to find that the watershed doesn't like something we did, or we comply with the watershed and the city rules and we find out maybe the PCA doesn't like what we did with our filtration basins, and we get kicked back and forth sometimes for months or a year to just try to solve a simple stormwater solution. And by way of comparison, we also build and develop in Hudson, Wisconsin. We've been the largest builder there for 25 years and have developed a lot of land. And when you go to Wisconsin, there's one agency that really governs stormwater, and that's the Wisconsin DNR. And they work with the city, but you basically have one agency. You have to comply with the rules. The city defers to them on the technical aspects, and then they make sure that the city plans correspond with the state requirements. But it saves us a considerable amount of time, money on engineering. And I would argue that, in fact, the stuff we do in Wisconsin, I think in a lot of ways is better than the stormwater stuff we do in Minnesota in terms of protecting the resources, because you've got one agency that has kind of control over it that can take maybe a little more objective look. In Minnesota, we oftentimes feel like we get pulled between agencies and competing requirements where the PCA is concerned about groundwater, the watershed is concerned about water quality, the city's concerned about managing stormwater, and sometimes those 3 can't get on the same page, where in Wisconsin it's just a much simpler process. And the end result, of course, to that isn't, making John Rask's life easier, but it's about providing, a home and being able to reduce some of those regulatory costs so that we can sell homes at a price people can afford. And you saw the data that Nick provided from builders in Hudson, and it's very true. The process there is easier. The process there in terms of the codes are less stringent. I would argue that they're not getting an inferior product. I mean, the things we do in our homes, and we have more discretion in how we build a quality home in Wisconsin than we do in Minnesota, where the codes are quite prescriptive. Wisconsin, we have, we think build all of the same quality that homeowners deserve. So I think that's an important part to point out in the whole aspect as we look at state to state. So just in summary, I think this report did an excellent job of kind of highlighting some of the things in the home building industry that we're seeing today. There are a lot of good intentions here. There are a lot of good people at the city level we work with every day to deliver great neighborhoods and homes. So this isn't an attack on cities or fees. We believe we can work in concert with these folks. But as the study points out, there's a whole lot of people that have their fingers in the home building process and the regulatory process. And it's not something that just one municipality or one agency or one builder can solve on its own. It's going to really take a collective effort. And we're excited to be here today to share this with you. We think we've provided some real information that's going to allow policymakers at the state level, local level, to take some of these considerations into play as you look at housing policies in the state. And I guess with that, I'll pause, and if there's any questions you have of me or David or Nick, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. Members, questions? Senator Dietzick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this report. I have read it, and I have some questions. Of course, I can't find some of the pages now, but I'll follow up with you later. I appreciate that you did this because I do agree with a lot that's in here, including that I don't think there is any single rule or regulation or policy which will have a big impact. And I do think that we need to just continue having this conversation. And I've been saying for many years, and so I appreciate that you put in here that housing affordability is not just a Twin Cities issue, it's becoming statewide. And then I do have some questions based on reading this, and I'll try to be brief, and I will be, especially since I can't find some of the pages on. But how do you define affordability? Because in a lot of this, what I'm seeing, you're talking average home prices. On page 10, at least the ones you reviewed, were about almost $400,000. And so I'm just looking at how did you get to that number? Because, you know, for a lot of people, affordability is way, way less. So just kind of how do you define affordability and how did you come with that number?
Who wants to take that question?
I will. Senator, that's a wonderful question. It's one we get a lot. You know, frankly, you would be challenged to find a home builder in the Twin Cities today who could build a single-family home for less than $350,000. That is just simply how expensive it is to build a new home today. That's one of the reasons why we have the I believe, fourth largest gap between new and existing home prices in the country. We simply cannot deliver anything lower than that price point. I was asked not that long ago, what would it take to deliver a $125,000 home in the Twin Cities, and what would that look like? If you were moving out to Woodbury, that would be going to Target, buying a tent, and putting it up on the lot, because that's how expensive it has become today. So we define affordability as not a specific target, but really watching how over the last 10 years or so, we have seen our homes, the new home price, median new home price jump considerably to a point now where very few Minnesotans can afford a new home.
Senator Dietzick.
Thank you. So I know in here you talk a lot about there's the fees and regulation part, there's the land costs, there's labor and construction materials, and so I have a few questions related to that. So I believe Dolly at some point within the last few years, I remember I was at a meeting, and it could have even been 2 years ago, that Senator Hall and Senator Clausen called, and a whole bunch of people were there. And at that meeting came out that Dolly, I believe, was literally going through and doing what they do every few years, a review of all their, you know, fees and the whole building code, because that's a part of this. And so were you part of that, and do you have any comments on that?
Yes, thank you, Senator.
Mr. Erikson.
I sat last spring for 3 months almost, 2 to 3 times a week at the Department of Labor and Industry, working through their technical advisory of pretty much every building code related to residential development. I will give the Department of Labor and Industry credit. We have seen a significant commitment to affordability from the Department in Labor and Industry. And I've been with Housing First now on my 3rd session, and in that time we have seen a significant commitment from Department of Labor and Industry on affordability. They're very sensitive to price fluctuations and increased costs caused by different codes. You know, I spoke with one of their energy code experts a few months ago, and he had just done a tour of Greater Minnesota, where the home builder said if any more increases to construction costs in this state, particularly in border regions, the best winners for that are going to be Fargo, Grand Forks, Sioux Falls, Hudson, and Superior. So they're very sensitive at DLI to this, and I told the Assistant Commissioner just this morning that their commitment to affordability going forward is a really kind of how every other government partner in housing should act. They view housing regulations like we do, where if you do increase the cost of construction, whether it's you're increasing a fee, you're increasing the cost of physical construction. You have a policy that's increasing the cost of anything, whether it's holding on to money too long and you're charging a finance charge for that. They view that as a home buyer cost. And I think you might hear later today from other testifiers about developer fees, developer costs, development paying. It's important to keep in mind that those are homeowner costs. Those are home buyer costs. It's not anyone else's cost but the home buyer. So hope that answers your question.
Any further, Senator?
I have maybe one or two follow-up. Thank you. You also talked about outside forces and then the land costs and the impact of the MUSA line, and I understand that, but it's, the costs are not just in the metro area where they're rising. How much of this is, and I'm truly asking this because we've seen in more the rental market where you have some outside funds coming in and buying these large buildings, and then, or else they're buying, and others are starting to buy, a sixplex or something like that. And at least in my city, Minneapolis, the costs are just going up and up. And it's because where I might not pay $100,000 for that, some other funds are coming in and buying, oh, we'll give you $500,000. And so just the value of the home that's going up, and that's great for the homeowner when they go to sell it, but it is an issue with affordability. So how do we address that where it's just everything is going up? And so it is pricing out, not just the middle homes and people in the $400,000 home range, but a lot of people, including renters, and then the conversation on there's just that beginning home market is so tight that where do people move to?
Mr.
So
Erickson?
just any comments?
Yeah, I guess on the land side, I think it's definitely a factor of supply and demand. When you have a sewer line that only goes out to Blaine, that land in Blaine is going to be much more valuable to development. The Met Council and the development housing industry here in the Twin Cities, we share the same goal of orderly development, making sure that no one's leapfrogging over another, so that our orderly growth does make costs or lowers the cost to the home buyer. I think this is just one specific policy where we disagree, but definitely the demand caused by a limited supply of land is what is raising those prices. And I think on the other parts of construction, we do hear a lot that sometimes how do you some of these construction codes, some of these the requirements that go into a building, they don't appraise. We've heard a lot about how the cost of a home to build might be $400,000, but some of those costs you can't actually it doesn't add value to the home, so it might appraise for less if you were going to sell it. That's a comment I hear often as it relates to certain aspects of the energy code.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I would just add that we really do believe that if we could increase production substantially, I mean, it's a law of supply and demand. If we were able to increase production, we do believe that overall house prices would actually mitigate and drop. We fundamentally think that that's true, and the governor's task force, I think, identified that. So I don't know if that answers your question in a sense, but more production is definitely part of the answer.
So Mr. Siegel, to that point, if you could get enough houses into the marketplace, there'd be more to choose from for buyers with the supply being more adequate and hence the prices going down. But it's a bit of a catch-22. How do you get more products in the market when it's too costly to put them in the market? Somebody's got to take a big hit. That's
why this legislative commission has a great opportunity if anyone wants to pick up on this proposal.
Okay. Senator Dietzig, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm interested. You go ahead if you have one more, otherwise Senator Draheim and Johnson. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank you guys for your work on this, and I think it mimics what we, especially Senator Frentz and myself, on the governor's task force with housing, have already heard. And housing is a complicated machine, if you will, and there's different segments of the housing market that are affected. In my opinion, I agree with the point about the land use, the zoning, all those things that we do, the square footage of the house, lot size, et cetera, that does affect the cost or the density you can build. And it kind of goes to something that we talked about in the governor's task force, which was not in my backyard. And I think, you know, as a society, we have to decide what's more important, you know, affordable housing or a pretty picturesque neighborhood. And I think that does play a big role in the affordability. And we all want to live in that neighborhood. But I think the zoning changes that I have seen in the last 20, 25 years have affected affordability. And I know here we're not looking at a starter home, but those people that live in starter homes have to move up to something, and then they have to move up to something. So it does trickle all aspects of the housing. So I just wanted to thank you guys, and I'll let it go. Thanks.
Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming and enlightening us a little bit about what seems to be mostly metro-type building prices and whatnot. But, you know, we're dealing with the same sort of issues outstate, and you're talking about comparable costs and things like that. When you get into sparsely populated areas, it's hard to do those comps and to get those assessments right from the appraiser. One of the things that I'm particularly concerned about this week, which was not on my radar until this week, was we've got these regulatory issues, building permits and regulations, but apparently now we have a new permit that we need to be getting. And I've been asking this question through committees and individuals, but I was wondering if you've ever applied for a social permit.
Can't say I have.
And if I may, pick on
go
something you
ahead.
said earlier, Senator, you said this, you know, this is predominantly a Twin Cities problem. Our research is Twin Cities based. We are actually in the field now working on a follow-up paper that actually is going to be potentially, we don't have a timeline yet, but we are in the field working on a statewide look at this. So not just metro, but statewide. And I should say we spent considerable hours trying to find builders to participate. We did reach out to builders statewide and trying to get some statewide input, not just make this a Twin Cities paper, but we are looking at expanding this research to greater Minnesota. So if anybody knows has any good connections with some home builders that would be interested in this study, please let me know.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Johnson.
please follow up with me. I'll get you in touch with a few folks up north. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dietzich, you had another question, and anybody else? Then otherwise we'll get to the next testifiers.
I'll be brief. And thank you. How do you address the, you mentioned labor and construction materials increasing, and we have a labor shortage, and so I'm assuming that is also adding to the cost of building homes. How do you address that?
Mr. Chair and members, I think that's very true. Relative to the study, what we know is that the labor shortage is nationwide. So in a sense, it's a comparable increase across the country. So from a comparative on the cost of homes, I think you can say that all of those different markets have relatively the same challenges. More broadly, and we could spend much time talking about it, but we do need to drive more young people and give more young people the opportunity to think about careers in construction. I literally left our trade show, which is going on today at the convention center. In the back of the hall, there are 6 teams of 2 students building a wall and an adjacent wall and framing in a window and putting on some siding from a number of area high schools and colleges as part of that exercise. So that's almost a different conversation. Would love to have it, but I think probably at a different time. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
What's that? Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for your report. It's helpful. It's exactly what we're looking for is more information. My question has to do with the comparison between the Twin Cities and Hudson, just to take it as a marker. And you've talked about the midpoint here for Builder A in the Twin Cities in the neighborhood of 375 as an average, and in Hudson in the neighborhood of 330. Is that ratio different than it was 30 years ago?
Yeah,
Mr.
thank
Erickson.
you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, John Raskow from MI Homes. I'll answer that since we are not our numbers, but we are building and have built in both markets for a number of years. And part of this does get to the land supply issue. When you jump farther out, you're paying less. But when you get outside of the You know, we're in places like Otsego and Wright County because there is greater supply of land than you can find in the Twin Cities. So same thing was true for many years in Hudson. You could find very affordable land in Hudson that you could not find in Woodbury. So we'd always tell our buyers, save $50,000 and just drive that extra 5 miles. And that's really been true of Hudson for 25 years. Now Hudson's starting to change as it fills up. And then the other side of that cost difference, you know, a lot of little things, you know, in Minnesota, you got a sheetrock your ceiling for fire code. Hudson, you don't. People, you know, want to be able to finish their basements. We leave that out. But there's just a whole host. It's hard to just identify one item, but there's plumbing code changes. There's, you know, ventilation differences. There's fire code differences. Permit fees are half. I can get a permit in Hudson for $5,000 to $6,000. If I'm in Lake Elmo, which we are, we're paying $12,000. Well, there's $6,000. You have to have an air exchanger, and in Lake Elmo you don't. In Hudson, well, that's another $3,000. So it doesn't take long to get to that amount. And you know, it is possible to deliver a much more affordable home across the river.
And if I could add on the comparisons, these are the base model entry-level home. This is not, we're not comparing, you know, finished basement, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances in Minnesota to something else in Hudson or you know, Chicago. This is the base model home that these builders offer. So if you are at the top of your lending limit and you want to buy a new home, you're going to forego any upgrades. It's an unfinished basement. These are the homes in the study. This is not comparing. You might hear later that it's an apples to oranges comparison. It's not. It's apples to apples. It might, you know, we might have a Granny Smith in Minnesota. It might be Red Delicious in Hudson, just because it's that much, you know, more affordable. But these are base model entry homes.
Senator Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Rask, since you jumped in there, my question is that ratio different than it was 30 years ago?
I think it's spread out more today. There's a greater savings to go to Wisconsin than there probably would have been 20 years ago. I can't say I have those hard facts on exactly what that number is, but we just haven't, you know, not as much has changed on the other side of the river as it has here. The stormwater example I gave before, I mean, even in my lifetime in dealing with development in the Twin Cities, you know, if you go back when I was a city planner, you had maybe 2 regulatory agencies on the stormwater stuff, and now you've got all these other individuals that have entered that arena. So it has changed more so in Minnesota. I think that's certainly helped to drive the cost.
On Mr. Rask's, on the stormwater, interesting you bring it up. Hasn't that become more restrictive or more applied to smaller developments in recent years, or am I thinking wrong? And how much has that changed in 20, 30 years? To add on to Senator Fritz's question.
Yeah, good question, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Probably the greatest change in some of the regulatory costs have been in stormwater. And that's not to say that it's not needed, because stormwater and the protection of our water resources is obviously something we all value. We're not here to argue that point at all. But when you look at it, basically emanates from the Clean Water Act, and as we've implemented the various stages of that act, there's been more regulations put on, not just Minnesota, but throughout the country. I think it's how Minnesota has chosen to implement those standards and the number of regulatory agencies they have involved in the implementation of some of those Clean Water Act requirements is what makes it more challenging here as compared to, say, Wisconsin or Chicago, where that oversight rests with a single agency, not multiple.
Senator Fritz, any follow-up?
Mr. Chair, if I might add one other piece.
Mr. Siegel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. One of the things we found in the study and in talking to our builders is that if they were provided a little more flexibility in terms of broadly in terms of codes, we think we could build a much less expensive house and still provide something that's very safe and very durable, but much more affordable. But we're not able to do that because we're not provided that flexibility. So if there were a way to give us a performance path toward a goal as opposed to a prescriptive path toward a goal. I'll just give you one example. We test homes, what's called a HERS index, home energy rating score. And Minnesota's HERS index is the lowest this is a rating from an organization, nonprofit organization called ResNet, Residential Energy Network, out of California. And the HERS index has become sort of the miles per gallon for houses across, newly built houses across the country. Our score average is about 51. That's the best score in the country of any state that tests a substantial number of homes. We test about 6,000 or 7,000 homes a year. We've tested over, 15,000 homes in this market now. We think we could hit a target like that if you gave us a target like that and gave us the flexibility to get there in a performance pathway as opposed to a prescriptive pathway. We don't have an easy way to do that today. And that would be something we'd ask this commission to take a look at.
And Mr. Siegel, to that effect, would you have some draft legislation that we might be able to look at or might be able to be introduced and proposed to kind of work towards that end? It sounds like a pilot project in the making.
This is Nick Erickson. I think we are doing twofold. I think we are working with legislators on the commission concept right now, seeing what we can get started from a legislative standpoint for a commission, but more broadly on innovation. For the last 6 months, I've been working with some of the best construction minds here in the Twin Cities, and we've been working on just exactly this. And it's not just an energy code. We are really taking a home that was built 30 years ago and trying to see what we can learn from what we did back then versus what we do today, and also look forward into the future at some of the emerging technology in the construction space and some emerging techniques, and see from a physical construction of the building, from a building code, energy code, and maybe some of these the state agencies with stormwater, could we come up with performance measurements in each of these key areas and come up with a home that meets these targets or exceeds these targets and is actually more affordable. And this week we just started working on a similar project based on land use, and we're hoping again in 6 months to a year that we will have a report that we can issue hopefully to this Affordability Commission that shows that through some common sense reforms, some innovative practices, learning what other states, other cities are doing either across Minnesota, across the country, what innovative techniques and policies can we come up with that are actually going to have a partnership with government and the industry to reduce home prices. We're hoping that we can share that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. And I guess final question, probably, I don't know of any other members, but you touched on the innovation in the different ways. Makes me ask the question, where do modular homes fit into this? I hear a lot of feedback from folks that say they think they can build them in a factory. There's several throughout the state. Was talking with a group of commissioners last night at an event talking dynamic homes in Detroit Lakes came up, but that's one of them of many. How could that help, or is there looking at some of those models as opposed to traditional models? And mixed into that, I want to, because Mr. Rask brought this up, but I thought it was a good point. I came across a scenario 10 years ago, and I'm wondering if this is the kind of points you're talking about, but a situation where a local building inspector happened to be a dynamic home. The Department of Labor inspector inspects their house for all the building codes. It gets hauled into a central Minnesota town that has their own code, and all of a sudden the fire code in the attic didn't meet the city code, yet it met the state building code, and so it cost about $3,000 to $5,000 to redo the same building system that was built in a factory approved by a Department of Labor building code inspectors. And it sounds to me like that's some of the same things you're talking about that you mentioned, Mr. Rask. But how does that fit into some of the innovation, or is that not a option that you find savings, or panelized houses I've heard about? How do those work into some of your thoughts?
This is Nick Erickson. So I can tell you, we've heard a lot of talk, and even with the Governor's Housing Task Force, about panelized modular construction. Part of the challenges is we also have a truck driver shortage in the state. And I think if we look at shifting our framing and drywall crews, we can solve that labor challenge, but all we're doing is exacerbating the transportation labor shortage that also exists. So I think that's part of it. Also, we have winter load restrictions on our roads. Complete reliance, unfortunately at this point in time, on panelized construction really means your construction sites are going to have to be standing at a standstill in the winter or in the spring months, right when you're able to actually be active, digging foundations, assembling wall systems, because you're not able to transport any materials from a site. You also have to construct an on-site climate-controlled storage place. You don't want rain falling on assembled wall panels as they're sitting out there for 6 months waiting for the spring thaw. So I think those are some of the challenges. It's not to say we have members that are not working on that. I know we have members that are relying on it. But what they've told us is it works great currently if you're close to where your plant is for panelized construction. But as they've found is it takes only a few truckloads to deliver an entire unassembled home. It's many more on panelized construction. You're transporting a lot of air just from the volume standpoint, and they found the challenges also on the labor side there they still exist. So it's not the silver bullet that I think some in the housing space are hoping it will be. I think it's part of the solution. It works when it works. Some builders use it, some don't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you much for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
I think there'll be more questions coming, but we look forward to continuing discussion with you and many others concerned about this issue. Very good insight. We have other testifiers, Irene Kao, and I understand a couple of administrators might join you.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Clark and Mr. Miller.
That is correct.
And Mr. Clark is probably familiar with the process here, but I'll remind all of you, please identify yourself for the record, and however you want to proceed, go ahead, Ms. Kao.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Irene Gao. I'm with the League of Minnesota Cities. As many of you may be aware, the League is a membership organization of 833 of the 853 cities that are in the state of Minnesota. The League provides a number of different services, including education, risk management, and advocacy. With me today, I have two individuals representing Greater Minnesota as well as in the metro area, just to explain a little bit in terms of what housing development is like and how they work with developers in their individual cities. We do realize that the committee is scheduled to end at 4:30, so we'll try to be as brief as possible. We're going to provide a high-level overview, and hopefully through questions can get through some of the nuance. We do appreciate the study. I think it continues the conversation on housing. As this committee knows, housing is a complicated issue. Single-family development is just one aspect of it. Housing is a really important issue for cities. There are unique dynamics in our 853 cities, and so they have different needs. It could be affordable housing, workforce housing, or market rate housing. Where you build really matters. The type of soil that it's being built on, is it sand, is it clay? What is your proximity to one of our over 10,000 lakes in our state? What about stormwater, as was discussed earlier? Because that has impacts on our drinking water. Now, each community meets these housing needs in a number of different ways and actually does allow for some of the flexibility that was talked about earlier, including adjustments to zoning. Smaller lot sizes is an example, increased density is another. And some cities have financial incentives, such as tax abatements. What we find on our end is that even though there is this flexibility, even though there might be these incentives or changes to zoning, it doesn't always result in development actually happening in that city, or sometimes it doesn't result in the cheaper homes that we're hoping. When development does occur, cities work with developers to ensure that these developments are safe and consistent with these community goals. Some cities have chosen to bear some of those development-related costs, and that's done through taxpayers. And some other cities have required that development pays for development-related costs, such as water, sewer, and roads. Now, development fees fall into different buckets. One of the buckets is related to the city review, approval, and inspection of development. And there are already statutory limitations for these fees. These fees have to be fair, reasonable, and have a nexus or a connection to the actual cost of the service for which the fee is imposed. And it also needs to be roughly proportional to the size and proposed use of development. Now, some of these funds that are collected from the developer for this fee is put into an escrow. And as you know, the escrow is then drawn upon for things like plan review. And if there's any money left over in the escrow, that money goes to the developer. Now, there's another bucket that is related to infrastructure to pay for things like water and sewer. And oftentimes, as we had some discussion earlier, when there is that infrastructure in place, the land cost is greater. This tends to be a value and something that home buyers want. Now, if these fees are not paid at the development stage, then taxpayers have to pay for it. Someone needs to pay for the infrastructure because there is increased need either through water, sewer, or roads. Now, sometimes it may be the case where a city comes to a point where they say, if the development doesn't pay for it and our cities just can't be taxed anymore, then development might need to be halted. And that's not things that most of our cities want. Now, one question that does come up and has been discussed through the presentation is, why do regulations and fees vary from city to city? Now, as I talked about earlier, each city has different aspects to the city itself and to that community, but they also have different planning and development goals which are tailored to that unique attributes of their community. So, for example, one city might want to preserve agricultural space, while another values affordable housing. We really do appreciate the work that Housing First has provided, and it is from the developer and building perspective. When we're looking at it from the city perspective, there are some things that are missing. Now, one of the things they have acknowledged is that it's 4 builders that they have looked at with 8 cities in the Twin Cities. Housing is an issue throughout the entire state, which is why we have some of the testifiers here today. So it is hopeful to hear that the study or the report will take a look, or future reports will take a look at Greater Minnesota. There are some other things, though. If you take a really close look at the report in the back in the appendix, it shows that land cost, which we've talked about, but labor and materials are the highest pieces to what's leading to the housing cost. Instead, the report doesn't focus on how could we be solving some of those things, or even how this proposed legislative commission could take a look at those factors, but instead focuses on local fees, regulations, and the state building code. I'm going to actually turn it over to our testifiers to provide their city-specific experience, and so I will leave it to them in terms of who would like to go first.
Very good. Thanks, Ms. Cow. Who wants to go first?
I will, Chair.
Okay.
Sure.
Identify yourself for the record and welcome.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Justin Miller. I'm the city administrator for the city of Lakeville. And before I address the Housing First report, I thought it might be helpful to provide some context to housing development in Lakeville. Since 2010, we have added over 3,900 housing units across all housing types: single family, townhome, senior assisted and independent living, market rate, and workforce apartments. We currently have almost 2,000 lots that have received final plat approval and 1,200 units that are going through city review process. Needless to say, housing development is very important to the city of Lakeville, and we take this subject very seriously. We realize that Lakeville has many advantages that are attractive to home builders: plenty of available land, access to transportation corridors, proximity to major labor centers. But we believe one of our biggest assets is the relationships that our city staff, our advisory commissions, and our city council have built with residential developers. These relationships create results that are not quantifiable in a report that analyzes solely city fees. These relationships allow us to respond to concerns of the development community and provide something that developers tell us is as important as any fee, and that is flexibility and speed. As a result of these relationships, we've responded to developers' concerns in several ways. We've allowed for smaller lot sizes, which provides for more units per development, although we have seen that through market demands, and we don't blame the builders for doing this, that the same larger type homes, larger size homes, are being built on these smaller lots. We've allowed fast track approval process, which removes extra meetings, extra planning commission and city council meetings, and we allow site work to begin on the site before final approvals have been received. We have actually lowered fees when it's been appropriate. In past years, we've reduced park dedication fees to reflect decreasing land prices, and we've lowered engineering review fees to account for efficiencies in staff review processes. We've increased the allowance of model homes when multiple developers are building in a single development, and we've allowed for longer street construction times when weather caused extended delays. And finally, we provide for what we call a similar plan review process. And so when a large builder comes in and submits the same floor plan across multiple homes, we don't charge the same fee every time they come through. But since the Housing First report did highlight city fees, specifically some of those in Lakeville, we feel it would be worth highlighting areas that were either inaccurate or did not provide the appropriate context. One example is that a private pool was constructed for a homeowners association at the cost of $5,600 per home. They calculated this in the, quote, green space requirements of that development, yet the city did not ask for or require that this pool be built. The developer also claimed that $8,900 was added to the cost of each home for oversizing sewer and utility lines, but the report did not disclose that it's city policy to then credit or reimburse the developer for this oversizing cost. And then finally, in the building permit price, they include a $3,000 landscape escrow, but they do not mention that this money is returned once that landscaping is completed. Now, these examples are specific to the case study for Lakeville, but I'm confident that other inconsistencies could be found when reviewing the report for other cities. This, along with the difficulty in determining exactly how they calculated, quote, regulatory fees, does raise concerns regarding the accuracy and the thoroughness of the report. Fees that we collect, that all cities collect.
Mr. Miller, Senator Weber has a question.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, I just want to make sure, Mr. Miller, that we're looking at the correct numbers. I assume that the outline of costs that you're talking about is on page 58 of the priced out true cost of Minnesota's broken housing market. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so as I look down there, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Miller, the green space item of the pool is the $5,614. I assume that the oversizing sewer and water lines, which aren't necessarily listed specifically, would that be under infrastructure in the in-development infrastructure item?
Mr. Miller? Chair, committee member, that's unclear, and that's one of the concerns we have. It is listed in the description in the second paragraph on the top left corner. It says oversizing sewer and water lines added $89.23 per home, but that then is not spelled out specifically, at least that we could find anywhere else in the cost.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Senator Weber. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Okay, thank you. So fees that we collect, that all cities collect, are dedicated to specific uses, and they also have specific benefits. Park dedication fees are restricted to new park developments due to demands of growth and the demands of our residents that are moving into the city. Sewer and water hookup fees are dedicated to expanding the system, again due to growth demands. Lakeville, similar to other communities, has a goal of having growth pay for itself in a fair and equitable way without burdening existing taxpayers. If growth is not paid for by growth, the bill must be paid in some other manner, specifically higher property taxes or increased utility rates. We recognize that residential development is a complicated business with inherent risks and is subject to very competitive market forces. But we also value the partnership that we have with the development community and hope to be able to continue that conversation to identify areas we can all agree can be streamlined and improved to help provide more housing options to our residents. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thanks, Mr. Miller. Mr. Clark, why don't you identify yourself and make your comments, and then we'll open it up for more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great to be back with you and members of the committee. My name is Craig Clark, Administrator for the City of Austin, and prior to that was City Administrator in Worthington for 6 years.
So it doesn't go unnoted for any members that haven't weren't here a couple years ago. Mr. Clark has a few more gray hairs than when he was here before, but he used to be the committee administrator for the Ag Committee in the House. And so that's a little of the rib that's going on.
That's good. We appreciate the concerns of the housing costs in the metro area. We certainly recognize that Minnesota does well when the entire state does well. I think generally speaking, the concern of the report identifies that there's not enough building in the metro area. I guess what I'd add in greater Minnesota, the concern is that we're not building any housing units, and would ask, as the committee look at this topic, that have equal concern in the discussions. Be particularly mindful as you look at this issue to not paint with such a broad brush. Greater Minnesota has some starkly different realities than the metro area, and also caution you to try to do what you can to preserve local control as you look at this issue. Just to give you some background, Austin, and this is going to be the case for many of your rural communities, gross median rents are $649. Weekly wages are $824, 13% below the state. Half of individuals would need an additional $5,000 per year to afford an $1,100 rent. And the median home is less than $100,000 in Austin, certainly the definition of affordable by anyone's measure. Complicating our new home construction and multifamily construction, our valuations complicate lending. When a new apartment complex, say, to be built for $5 million, probably would have a valuation of maybe 2.5. That obviously makes lending a difficult challenge and another hurdle for greater Minnesota. We hear from developers that our populations, if they have a fixed investment to build it in Rochester, say, rather than Austin, they've got a higher population base and the same fixed investment, and they're going to go to a higher wealth community than perhaps choosing Austin. What this all leads to in Austin's reality is we haven't seen a true market rate multifamily complex in over 40 years. I stopped looking after 4 decades of looking for any new market rate multifamily development in Austin. It doesn't exist. This has limited our growth potential and threatening our long-term viability as a city. We are open for business. We've had no concerns about the fees that we charge as a city. It's just more difficulty in recovering the infrastructure cost on a per lot basis and making that affordable for new construction. Austin has adopted, as well as when I was in Worthington, a tax abatement program that offered 5 years of tax abatement for any new multifamily or single-family home. This abates property taxes above the land value for city, school, and county taxes. It's a pleasure to have worked with our school district and county to adopt that and try to incentivize more single-family construction. Also, to put in perspective, this last budget cycle, the city of Austin included $200,000 to try to help address land availability for developers. One of the concerns that was raised by developers is that they have a shovel-ready site ready to move forward. While we have some on the periphery, there was some interest in the downtown core. Assembling those parcels, developers weren't necessarily interested in trying to do the assembling of those parcels, which has led council to budget funds for that. You know, just as far as perspective, we read Minneapolis added $40 million to their budget to address housing challenges. Our $200,000 was a fairly significant push. We're not Minneapolis and Austin, but certainly 200 is nothing compared to 400,000, still trying to address a major cost driver in the community. In rural communities, we face a large reliance on the city to address this issue. We don't have the same private partners that fortunately they have in the metro area, and so that burden's really fallen heavy on the city council to try to address that so our businesses can grow. We would encourage you to look at workforce housing tax credits or grant programs to help with this. Interestingly, you know, Austin with a 20% poverty, our focus has really been on market rate development. As you can imagine, as I outlined the lack of production of market rate units in single family homes, there's really not that ability for someone to move through the upward mobility of housing and free up affordable units in the middle. We're living in a pressure cooker of lack of production. As you move forward, we really hope you would appreciate this disconnect of greater Minnesota. We hear stories of the Fort Snelling project, $640,000 per unit. The Pillsbury A-Loft, $450,000 per unit. Those dollars could go a long way in greater Minnesota in driving new housing starts. We just don't have the financial partnership with private developers to pull off some of those projects, but at the same token have probably as equal to or greater need for housing development in Austin, and we'd appreciate your consideration in the mix of that as you consider these complex issues. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Senator Goggin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question's, I think, open to all the testifiers. I was just looking at the report, and I see the Met Council fees. They differ by city, and I was just wondering if we could understand why they differ.
Mr. Miller, do you have an insight on that? Oh, Mr. Erickson?
I can try, and then maybe Mr. Erickson.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Whoever wants to go ahead. Identify yourself for the record.
Sure. Justin Miller, City Administrator, City of Lakeville. As I understand it, the Met Council does have standard fees, hookup fees for the sanitary sewer system. Each city then might have a separate fee that sometimes is tied or connected to that fee. So I don't know exactly how they're classifying Met Council fees, but that's how I understand it. So.
Yes, that is.
Mr. Erickson, just say your name for the
Yes,
record.
Mr. Erickson, sorry. Kind of hard to hear all the way up, get my voice all the way over. Yes, that is correct. And, to address Mr. Miller's earlier question, kind of related to, as he said it, the pool charge is part of what we consider parks, greens, and open space. It was not attributable to the city. It's just we basically spent 6 months taking 12 cities, 4 builders, accounting methodologies, and standardizing them, and we created a category called parks and open space, not attributable to the cities. The landscape escrow that was pointed out, there is a carrying cost with escrow funds, letters of credit, depending on which city, which builder, what accounting methodology they use, and interest has to be paid on this money. There is a cost to borrowing money, and that is what the builder reported as the cost. If it's held longer, it's a lower interest fee, obviously, depending on the timeline to get it back. I just spoke to Mr. Rasback here, who said his company has over $1 million in small little escrow fees, $2,300 here, $1,500 there, $300 in a different city, and it doesn't take too many of those to add up to $1 million, and the interest on that is the carrying cost that they have to pay for that funds comes up to be $100,000 per year. So these escrows, although the principal is refunded to the builder, there's oftentimes an interest cost to the, whether it's a developer or builder, depending on how those escrows are borrowed.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Goggin, any follow-up? No. Senator Dietzick, and then Mr. Nobles. We have one more testifier, members.
Thank you, both of you, for being here. We like to hear from our local cities, so I appreciate that. To the Austin City Manager, Mr. Clark, on that gap where there's it might cost $5 million to build and then it gets evaluated at $2 million, any suggestions and thoughts on how we can help other than a grant?
Mr. Clark.
Think about it.
Yeah, I don't have anything for you off the top of my head. Sorry. Yeah, it's a tough one.
No,
I mean, I
good.
can,
well,
if the lender can't get, the appraisal to appraise out, that's just part of the handicap we have to try to address, which is, again, an added burden for us to try to mitigate, so.
very good. Thank you for making it in. Hopefully the roads were a little better than yesterday, and we appreciate you making the drive and sharing with our committee. Mr. Nobles, why don't you come up? And if there's follow-up questions, we'll just have you come back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nobles, identify yourself for the record. Welcome to our committee. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Steve Noble. I'm the owner of Noble Custom Homes. I'm a developer in the rural area of St. Cloud area of Minnesota. I'm the president of the State Builders Association. I'm also on a planning board commissioner on one of our city's planning boards as well, so I understand the city side of this as well. But I've been developing homes or developing property for 30 years as well and building homes. I guess what I'm hearing, again, I'd like to say to my colleagues for the Housing First, they've done a good job kind of explaining the situation of affordable housing. They did a pretty good job of that. And then just listening to the city and their side of it as well, there's probably some truth to both sides. Being part of the city, we have, when we do developments, like maybe I'm probably better off giving examples than I am kind of saying the same thing that they said earlier. So when you look at affordable housing, what I found or what I see from my point of view is the smaller the home, the more impact each of the, say, codes for building codes, for example. It's the more impact it is to that particular one because it's a smaller square footage. A larger home can take, say, a larger example would be a 90-mile-an-hour door for a garage door. Well, that costs several $100s to do that. Well, a $400,000 home, larger home, that's a little piece of the pie, but on a $150,000 or $200,000 home, that's a bigger percentage of the pie. So as you add more of these building codes, it becomes more punitive to that smaller home and not so much to the larger home, if that makes sense. My personal opinion on this is that I think a lot of those code requirements that we have, we've gone too far in adding too much for energy efficiency in respect to cost effectiveness or the cost of the home affordability. So for example, I was here earlier this morning and testified at the House, and the part of the thing is, like, say, for example, we have insulation requirements. The new energy code has higher insulation requirements. So we used to be back in the day, R20s, R30s, now we're all the way up to R49. Well, all those are added costs. Again, that smaller home can't take that burden where a larger home can take that. So some of the other things that we're doing that just doesn't seem to make sense is we're sealing our ductwork. So a ductwork sealing, for example, costs $1,500 depending on how you do it. Well, that ductwork we're putting in there is heating going into the home that's not being wasted. It's still in the structure of the home, but it costs a lot of money to do that. A big home, again, not that big of a deal. A small home, it's a big deal. So there's a lot of little things like that our building code has done for affordability. Now, land development's another one that's, because we're a land developer, we see that. We used to cost us about $30,000 to $35,000 a lot about 6-7 years ago before the crash. That same lot today is $90,000 to $100,000 for the same size, same lot. Now, you ask, well, why is that? What's the reason? Well, there's a lot of different reasons for that. One is that, and they brought up a lot, the building first, or the homes first brought up quite a few of those. Just a lot of those are city fees that we have, impact fees that we're doing. Some of those are like a trunk fee. So we have to pay for the trunk fees being connected that the city put in down the road to be able to connect to that. We also have a lot of other fees for like your wetland impact fees, stormwater fees. All those fees add to the costs. In our area, in Sartell, which is a new development we've done, we had to do 2 engineers. One, we had to hire our engineer to do the work, to get it started, and basically design the whole thing. Then we had to hand it over to the city's engineer, and they basically just rubber stamped and did what our engineer did, and we had to pay basically 2 engineers to do the same work. It's not fair, and it adds extra cost to that property, because everything that gets added to that cost of that home gets put onto the homeowner. It's not that the builder is going to absorb it, it gets pushed onto the homeowner. So there are a lot of things that we could be doing and changing, and I hope that maybe that a task force can kind of look at some of these things. For example, we have SWIPs. SWIP is a soil and water prevention plan. Well, we're putting in our developments water retention ponds. So why are we putting silt fence around all these homes? We already have a water retention pond taking care of those silts in the first place. And the construction is only maybe 3 months out of the time, and you got grass growing in, and it's not a problem anymore. Well, those things we have to do for SWIP cost $1,500 to $2,000. There's a cost there. that's an example of just some things that we can do. Whack and sack fees, so some of those were discussed in the report as well. Well, whack and sack fees is the privilege of hooking up to the city's sewer and water, which is whack is the water access charge, and sack is the sewer access charge. It has nothing to do, we put the sewer, as a developer, we put the sewer and water into the development, and we're paying for the privilege of hooking up to the city's sewer and water. Now, I do understand from the city's point of view, they're like, well, we have to put in, for your development, we potentially may have to put in a bigger septic system for our city, or maybe we have to do some water towers to maybe make up for that. So I understand that. But it can't be on, if you're looking at affordability, some of those burdens can't be on just the developer itself. It's got to be on either the community or maybe funding from the state for the city for some of those things, from infrastructures. For affordability, it can't just be put on the burden of the developer anymore, because it's just affecting affordability way too much.
Mr. Nobles, while you're on whack and sack, I guess you make a good point. Most businesses are happy to add customers because they get monthly or yearly revenue out of those customers, which then helps them make money to pay for their costs of operating their business. Where have we developed this whack and sack idea that you get the privilege to hook up to the city water and sewer, but you get to put your own connection in?
So the way that's been explained to me from the cities I've worked with is that they're saying, well, because we have to put in this larger system and we have to put in larger lines down the road, we have to put in more water so we can get more water to your project. It's the privilege of those downline charges that have been put in. That's the privilege of what they're saying we're paying for, even though we are paying for called trunk fees, which are accessing fees to that are being put in down the road as well. So it's just a way of, I see it as a way of cities just trying to basically kind of get some funding and some more money in their coffers.
Very, very good. Senator Weber has a question, but just most businesses cover that cost by selling the product that they're going to get for months and years in advance. So
yes. So, like, for example,
it is an interesting observation you make.
Yeah. So, a city, for example, in our area, Sartell, the homes that we're building, they're getting the city for taxes. Our taxes for our area is about $4,000 to $5,000 a home that we're paying. Well, if you do 100 homes, that's a lot of money annually that's going out for taxes. Well, why couldn't some of those funds be used to help offset some of those costs? So,
Senator Weber has a question, and I know we're running a little over here, so thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, it's actually more of a comment to your statement. I think it's also important for us to remember, historically, quite frankly, that has been the nature of development in cities. I mean, you put in the utilities, everybody pays for them, and then what has happened over the course of years, however, is that these access fees have developed, and part of that is because we've also had some runaway activity on the part of the MPCA. And as we look at the enormous costs that they have put onto these projects that have come onto the cities have really struggled in order to find revenues to pay for them. And so if you want to add a lot of these development costs onto your monthly rate, you can go ahead and do that, but then you're going to develop utility rates that, quite frankly, price people out of their homes as well. Sure. And so I think when we start to look at the rules and regulations, let's also remember that what the city is passing on is part of what we have done to them as well.
Correct, yes. That's a good assumption. But there are some things that cities can do. So, for example, we build roads that we can land a 747 on in some of these developments, which is just not needed. Do you need curb and gutter? There are a lot of rural homes out there that don't have curb and gutter. They've got swales that will do the same thing than the curb and gutter will, and with less maintenance that the city has to take care of. But the cities don't like them. And I'll give you an example. Sartell, which is another development we've done, where we asked, so can we do surmountable curb, which is basically a curb that can go up and make it a little easier, and you can put your access to your driveway anywhere you want. They said, no, our our guys who do our snow plowing can't handle that. They have to have a regular curb. I said, that's kind of funny because the new park you just put in last year doesn't have any curb and gutter that we connect to, and it's just swales. For some reason that your guys who do the snow plowing can get there and snow plow your park nice and easy, but they can't do the development. So those are the kind of things that we get hit with as cities that I don't think are fair and cost the customer in the long run.
Senator Dietzig has a question.
It wasn't a question, it was more of a follow-up to Senator Weber's comment. We have also, since 2002, cut LGA. We've increased it recently, but as those cities are looking for, not all cities get LGA, local government aid, but as some cities, as the development has grown, and they're looking for fees, rightly or wrongly, it's because the state has also not given them local government aid. We've cut that back, so.
Yes. So
Senator Frentz, go ahead, Mr. Nobles.
Thank you,
Senator Frentz, why don't you ask?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Stepping outside the political debate that's brewing up here, my question for the developers is, what's the ability for you to go to the city councils and debate this, and do you get a full and fair opportunity? And then the related question, which is, if this is something that the city is doing that development would challenge, can't voters vote out that city council person or that mayor if they don't like the way it's being handled? Thank you.
Mr. Nobles.
Yep, to answer that question, so as a developer, you have a piece of property you're trying to develop, and you're paying money, interest on that property, and you've got engineer fees, you've got all these fees that are coming that you're paying for. And so you go to the city, and the city says, nope, we're going to listen to our snowplow guys, we're going to listen to our firefighter guys, because we want your roads to be this wide, because we don't think we can get our fire trucks through there and turn around. They don't listen to us, and we don't have the time to fight them for that. One builder, even as an association, it's difficult to fight them on that because you don't have the time or the funds to be able to take that on.
Very good.
Well, so some of the other things.
Anything, we'll have to have you wrap up fairly soon, Mr. Nobles. We're about 15 minutes over. So
more explaining kind of the lot scenario, why lots back not too long ago were 35 and now they're 90. So another example is utility companies. They used to pay for our utilities going in front of the property. Now, as a developer, we have to pay those. So that's just another example of some of the things that are driving their cost up. But cities do play a big. We built a house recently in Monticello. In Monticello, they told us how big the house had to be, as part of their ordinance that they have there, and in the development, how much stone was supposed to be on the outside of the home, how big the garage had to be. There was a whole bunch of factors, what size square footage the home had to be. So there was a lot of things taking away any chance of making that home affordable for that customer that we had. So these are some of the things that some of the cities do to take out the ability to make an affordable home. So I don't want to just beat up on the cities, because cities, a lot of times we work with a lot of cities, and a lot of them try. But some don't try and need to look at themselves a little bit.
Very good. Mr. Nobles, what's up? Members, any further questions? And Mr. Nobles, I think you've given us a lot of additional things to think about, as well as the cities. There obviously is a balancing act. I think the bigger message is maybe there's things that have gotten out of balance, both market-related, regulatory-related, and just building code-related. And let's step back, put the clutch in, and say, what do we really need? Because 30 years ago, some of these things we didn't require, and
yes,
people lived here long before now and 30 years ago. But Senator Weber had a comment or a question.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. I do think, in light of some of the information that came forward today, if you go to the Builder B, like in the city of Lakeville, for example, I agree with you, and you in full well know that I blame government for a lot of our problems, and so. But I do believe that in the study, to have put in the swimming pool cost under the green space as a requirement of the city, when that wasn't required by the city, is not necessarily fair.
Senator, it was not put in there as a requirement to the city. That was, it was put under Parks and Green Space, not as a city requirement. It was just simply put under Parks and Green Space. Was insinuated incorrectly that that was a mandated city cost. It is not.
Yeah.
It is just simply labeled as Parks and Green Space, because the question is, what do you do for trails? Trails are also green space. So as we looked across all the homes, we felt that that was probably the most appropriate place to put them.
But my question is, Mr. Chairman, if I might proceed,
Yeah, go ahead, Senator Weber.
would that number have showed up there if, would there have been an additional number for parks and trails if you hadn't had the pool?
Yes, yes, that, yeah. If they required trails, you know, there's some cities that have a trail fee in addition to a park fee. If it were trails in this situation, we would have put trails there. If it were a rain garden, we would have put parks and green space, as long as it wasn't mandated by, you know, the stormwater permit.
But Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead, Senator Weber.
My concern is, were those things actually mandated in this instance?
The pool was not, and it is not intended to insinuate that the city mandated that pool.
So I do think you classified that inappropriately. It should have been under construction costs at that point, because as a real estate appraiser, that's where I would put something like that as I'm evaluating these things.
And we had many debates about every single item where it should go, and that is, as we were reviewing it, that's what we decided. We could have put in construction costs. We also had an engineer who thought we should have an entire section called out for all the engineering costs, because that's his subject matter expertise. Those have been placed more into administrator costs or to the cost to those specific items. But again, it's a decision that we made, and it's unfortunate that it was insinuated that we placed that as a city mandate, and if you were left with that impression, I apologize.
And Mr. Erickson, just to Senator Weber's point, when you classified it as green space, that at least in my mind, it sort of falls under that the city was requiring this much open space or this much extra impervious space or this much area to have enjoyment and park and recreation. The pool was probably solely optional by the development as an amenity to sell their community.
Yeah, and it's important.
Or was it something that the city would have required as a part of the green space requirement?
It was completely optional by the builder. It's important to note that that was actually Lakeville is actually the most affordable of the 3 Minnesota cities from that builder. They were able to provide that amenity because it was more affordable to build in Lakeville comparative to other cities. But going back to this conversation, kind of digging into this rabbit hole, this is why we need a common language and transparency in housing costs, and that's why we proposed something called the Housing Affordability Impact Statement in our paper that would allow maybe this legislative commission to come up with a universal template for talking about these housing costs. And if it chooses to place that at construction costs, that would be up to this commission. And that's really, I think, the intention was there just to highlight everything that goes into these homes.
Very good. Mr. Erickson, thank you so much. And to everybody else that participated. Sometimes housing is not as exciting. I got to say this was exciting. So, thank you for bringing the perspectives. Truly, we appreciate hearing the variety of input, because I think this committee generally wants to find solutions because we hear from constituents, communities, cities, home builders, and ultimately residents of Minnesota that have a need for more affordable housing, and we want to be a part of fixing that problem that exists. And so with that, members, thank you for the great questions, the lively discussion, and we will continue this issue and discussion further. Members, before we adjourn, Monday, we have lined up, Kyle has lined up for our committee and talking with Catholic Charities and the Dorothy Day Center, a tour close to the Capitol here in St. Paul, but a recently renovated or built parts of their housing project with a variety of different housing options from day options on the lower level up to transitional intermediate and longer-term housing options. In talking to the group and working it out and talking with Kyle, we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to look at housing, a variety of it, something the state has put some money in recently, but an example of at least urban housing and something to give us all insight and a thought. And so I want to encourage everybody to attend. Kyle will get you all the details, but I'm using this platform just to make sure everybody knows about it. Next Monday's committee will be a tour of the Dorothy Day Higher Ground Center, and I hope everybody can just make that committee, and I think everyone will just need to find their carpool down there. But the meeting will start at 3 o'clock there. Attendance will be taken. You will flunk if you don't show up. So, meeting adjourned, members.